There is a kind of exhaustion. There is a kind of exhaustion that cannot be measured by the number of hours you sleep or the amount of time you work. This is the kind of fatigue that you cannot perceive with the naked eye. It can only be recognized when you face yourself, when everything around you stops, and you have the time to reflect on what has happened. This feeling does not come from hard physical labor or an overwhelming workload, but from mental exhaustion, the draining of energy from unconscious and unnecessary reactions to external things. I understand this well because I have experienced it. When you constantly react to every situation, to every expectation that is not yours, and to every criticism or misunderstanding you face, the truth is you are not exhausted because life is too hard. You are exhausted because you have been reacting too long and too automatically to things that do not deserve your energy. Every time you feel the need to explain yourself, every time you react to meaningless words, every time you allow yourself to be caught in a battle with no reward, you are slowly wearing yourself down without even realizing it. When I started SpaceX, people laughed at me. They thought it was a wild dream, impossible to achieve. They said I was wasting time and resources on something that couldn't be done. But I didn't react. I didn't need to explain myself to them, because I knew that patience and the ability to focus on my goals were more important than any reaction. What I learned is that not everything is worth reacting to. While others were caught up in pointless arguments, I realized that the most important thing was to remain silent, to focus on my work, to keep moving toward my goals. Don't let the world around you shape who you are. Don't let the words or actions of others distract you from your purpose. Reaction is natural, but when you let it control you, you lose control. While the world around you is spinning, you need to maintain inner calm. Ask yourself every day, what is truly worth my energy? What is pulling me away from my goals and beliefs? Don't let yourself get caught up in situations that you know are not beneficial. Remember, you only have a limited amount of energy each day. You cannot keep reacting to everything without sacrificing your peace and focus. Every time you react to things that are unimportant, you weaken your ability to focus on what truly matters. This doesn't mean you should become cold or indifferent. It means you need to learn how to choose where to direct your energy. If you continue reacting to everything around you, you will never have the strength to face the real challenges in life. Your time and energy are precious resources. We cannot keep running after meaningless battles, endless arguments. We must choose. And sometimes the right choice is to remain silent and keep moving forward, without letting external factors undermine our goals. The world will always have people who want to challenge you. They will use every method to draw you into arguments, into battles they have prepared for. But I don't let these people control me, and neither should you. To do great things, you must learn to say no to the unimportant. Patience and the ability to focus on long-term goals will always win over anger and instant reactions. Don't let your emotions control you. Let reason and strategy guide you. When you don't let yourself be drawn into every battle you don't need to participate in, only then can you truly grow and achieve great goals. This is similar to when I started building SpaceX. I didn't let the mockery or the doubt of others stop me. I kept moving forward, not reacting to what others said, because I knew that if I let those words control me, I would never reach my goal. I learned how not to react to things that weren't worth it, and that was the key to building great success. So let's start today, right now. Stop and assess what you are reacting to. Don't let things that are not worth it take your energy. Don't let those who don't understand you pull you off the path you have chosen. Master your reactions, and from there you will begin to control your life. The fatigue you carry is not because the world is chaotic, but because you haven't learned how to choose what deserves your attention. This is a truth that few dare to face. The world is full of things worth reacting to, but not everything deserves it. Every day, you are faced with a multitude of information, words, events, and demands from all directions. And if you don't have the ability to distinguish what is truly important, you will feel constantly exhausted. When I began my journey, There is a kind of exhaustion that cannot be measured by the number of hours you sleep or the amount of time you work. This is the kind of fatigue that you cannot perceive with the naked eye. It can only be recognized when you face yourself, when everything around you stops, and you have the time to reflect on what has happened. This feeling does not come from hard physical labor or an overwhelming workload, but from mental exhaustion, the draining of energy from unconscious and unnecessary reactions to external things. I understand this well because I have experienced it. When you constantly react to every situation, to every expectation that is not yours, and to every criticism or misunderstanding you face, the truth is you are not exhausted because life is too hard. You are exhausted because you have been reacting too long and too automatically to things that do not deserve your energy. Every time you feel the need to explain yourself, every time you react to meaningless words, every time you allow yourself to be caught in a battle with no reward, you are slowly wearing yourself down without even realizing it. When I started SpaceX, people laughed at me. They thought it was a wild dream, impossible to achieve. They said I was wasting time and resources on something that couldn't be done. But I didn't react. I didn't need to explain myself to them, because I knew that patience and the ability to focus on my goals were more important than any reaction. What I learned is that not everything is worth reacting to. While others were caught up in pointless arguments, I realized that the most important thing was to remain silent, to focus on my work, to keep moving toward my goals. Don't let the world around you shape who you are. Don't let the words or actions of others distract you from your purpose. Reaction is natural, but when you let it control you, you lose control. While the world around you is spinning, you need to maintain inner calm. Ask yourself every day, what is truly worth my energy? What is pulling me away from my goals and beliefs? Don't let yourself get caught up in situations that you know are not beneficial. Remember, you only have a limited amount of energy each day. You cannot keep reacting to everything without sacrificing your peace and focus. Every time you react to things that are unimportant, you weaken your ability to focus on what truly matters. This doesn't mean you should become cold or indifferent. It means you need to learn how to choose where to direct your energy. If you continue reacting to everything around you, you will never have the strength to face the real challenges in life. Your time and energy are precious resources. We cannot keep running after meaningless battles, endless arguments. We must choose. And sometimes the right choice is to remain silent and keep moving forward, without letting external factors undermine our goals. The world will always have people who want to challenge you. They will use every method to draw you into arguments, into battles they have prepared for. But I don't let these people control me, and neither should you. To do great things, you must learn to say no to the unimportant. Patience and the ability to focus on long-term goals will always win over anger and instant reactions. Don't let your emotions control you. Let reason and strategy guide you. When you don't let yourself be drawn into every battle you don't need to participate in, only then can you truly grow and achieve great goals. This is similar to when I started building SpaceX. I didn't let the mockery or the doubt of others stop me. I kept moving forward, not reacting to what others said, because I knew that if I let those words control me, I would never reach my goal. I learned how not to react to things that weren't worth it, and that was the key to building great success. So let's start today, right now. Stop and assess what you are reacting to. Don't let things that are not worth it take your energy. Don't let those who don't understand you pull you off the path you have chosen. Master your reactions, and from there you will begin to control your life. The fatigue you carry is not because the world is chaotic, but because you haven't learned how to choose what deserves your attention. This is a truth that few dare to face. The world is full of things worth reacting to, but not everything deserves it. Every day, you are faced with a multitude of information, words, events, and demands from all directions. And if you don't have the ability to distinguish what is truly important, you will feel constantly exhausted. When I began my journey with SpaceX, I could not allow myself to be dragged into irrelevant external factors, criticisms from the outside, worthless judgments, doubts from those who couldn't grasp my vision. These were just noise. I didn't let it affect my decisions because I knew that focusing on long-term goals was the most important thing. You can sit there complaining about the difficulties and uncertainties around you, or you can choose not to react, to select what deserves your focus. When you learn to filter what's worth paying attention to, you will realize that not everything around you is worth your attention. You cannot let every event, every situation control you. This world will always have people who want to stir up trouble, people who want to drag you into meaningless battles. But if you keep letting yourself get caught in every fight, you will never have the time or energy to pursue what truly matters. How much time do you spend every day reacting to people who don't understand you, to issues that don't affect your goals? And how much time do you have to focus on what's truly necessary? You will always feel exhausted if you continue letting external factors control you. I have learned that in order to achieve great things, you must know how to select what's worth investing your time and energy in. I never allow myself to be distracted by trivial matters, because I understand that focusing on big goals, on a long-term vision, is what determines success. Think about a simple example. If you spend the whole day explaining yourself to people who will never understand you, how much time will you have to do the important things? You are tired not because life is too hard, but because you are spending too much energy on things that are not worth it. I have seen so many people miss out on great opportunities because they were too busy reacting to little things. A small criticism, an unkind word, a situation that doesn't go as planned. These things make them lose focus and become exhausted. But if you learn to master your attention, you will see that you can do great things. You don't have to react to everything. Remember, not every battle is worth fighting. There are things that will drain you without yielding any results. While you're reacting to those, others are building greatness. I've faced countless difficulties and doubts. The people around me at that time didn't believe I could make it. They called my idea unrealistic, impossible to achieve. But I didn't react to them. I didn't need to prove anything to them because I was focused on my goal. I understood that if I kept worrying about other people's reactions, I wouldn't be able to move forward. The important thing is not to let the unworthy things pull you off the path you've chosen. Every time you react to something meaningless, you lower your own value. You waste energy on things that don't matter, and you create a habit of automatic reactions. But this is not strength, it is weakness. You may call it self-defense, but in reality, it's a trap. Once you realize that, you'll ask yourself, why am I letting this wear me out? When you learn to choose what deserves your attention, you will realize that your energy and time are much more valuable. You will no longer be drawn into unnecessary battles. You will focus on what's most important, and you will find that life becomes easier, more efficient. The key is not to react to everything. Choose what's truly valuable and pour all your energy into it. When you do this, you will no longer feel exhausted by meaningless things. Instead, you will feel stronger, more focused, and more confident than ever. Life is too short to waste on things that don't matter. Learn to choose what deserves your attention. That's the first step to creating a life free from fatigue. When you start observing yourself, you will realize that reacting has become your default. It is easy to notice, but hard to accept. We are taught from a young age that we must react to the situations around us. When someone criticizes, when a problem arises, or when there is any change in the environment. Reaction has almost become a part of our instinct, like a click to resolve the issue immediately. But the problem is, when everything in life is reacted to immediately, you no longer have time to focus and think about your long-term goals. You will forever be caught in the whirlpool of short-term situations, never having a chance to see the bigger picture. I experienced this when I started building SpaceX. The whole world looked at me like I was crazy. They said I couldn't do it, and what I was doing was bound to fail. But I didn't react to those criticisms. I didn't let them distract me. I understood that these people didn't grasp my vision. They didn't see the long-term goal I was working towards. And if I kept reacting to their words, I would lose the strength to continue my work. What I realized from my own experience is that if you keep reacting to everything around you, you will lose the ability to make decisions and control yourself. Reaction is something you don't need to think about. It just happens. You hear a criticism and you immediately react. You face a challenge and you immediately react. But if you don't stop and observe, You won't realize that every time you do this, you are losing strength and focus on the more important things. The more you react, the more you are controlled by external factors. You let others shape your emotions, and you gradually become a puppet in their game. This is a trap. Once you understand this, you will realize that you need to stop and think before reacting. Automatic reaction is not strength, it's just an uncontrollable habit. Reaction can make you feel like you're doing something, but in reality, you're falling into the trap of lack of self-control. I have faced many challenging situations, and I don't always react immediately. Instead, I stop, observe, and carefully calculate. I don't let myself get caught up in emotions or temporary situations. Because I understand that long-term success does not come from solving trivial problems, but from the ability to maintain vision and stay committed to goals. Every time you react without thinking, you reduce your ability to control and master yourself. You are creating limits for yourself that you don't even realize. I realize that important decisions, significant steps, cannot come from automatic reactions. They must be made from patience, focus, and a clear vision for the future. The most successful people are not those who react the quickest, but those who can slow down, observe, and make the right decision when needed. I'm not saying you should live an emotionless life. Emotions are an important part of being human, and you can't completely eliminate them. But the point is, you need to learn how to master them, instead of letting them control you. That is the difference between those who control their lives and those who let life control them. When you don't react immediately, you will notice that insignificant situations no longer affect you. You won't waste time fighting with people who don't understand you, no longer waste energy on things that don't bring you closer to your goals. You will have time to focus on what really matters. And when you start controlling yourself and not letting automatic reactions dominate, you will see your life begin to change for the better, not because the world around you changes, but because you've changed the way you face that world. When you start observing and controlling your reactions, you will see that this self-control creates an invisible power. Focus and commitment to goals are the key factors for long-term success, and to achieve that, you must give up the habit of automatic reactions. When you stop and think before acting, you not only protect yourself from unnecessary exhaustion, but also guide yourself in the right direction. And this is the first step toward achieving the greatness you've always desired. Exhaustion in your soul doesn't come from the obvious pain. It comes from the disconnection between you and your core values. When I started building SpaceX, I didn't just face technological, or financial challenges. The biggest challenge was to hold on to my vision and core values while everyone around me was skeptical. Many people told me that building a rocket that could land back was impossible. They said I was wasting time and money on something meaningless. But if I let those doubts control me, I wouldn't have made it far. Exhaustion doesn't come from hard work or the failures you face. It comes from being swept into the external voices, from not living according to what you believe in, and no longer heading towards the goals you set. The disconnection from your core values is why you feel exhausted without being able to explain why. When you no longer understand what truly matters to you, everything around you will feel like it is tearing you apart. Every decision you make will become vague, and you will lack the energy to stay firm with what you want. You begin to feel like you have nothing left to fight for, but the truth is, you still have the power in your hands. You just need to reconnect with yourself. When you live according to your core values, everything becomes clearer. You will no longer be swept up by events or arguments that have no value. Your vision will be clearer than ever before. And you'll realize that the things making you exhausted are actually just external factors, things that don't deserve your energy. When I started SpaceX, I always reminded myself that my goal was not to please others, but to do something great. All the doubts, all the criticisms were temporary. The road I was on was mine, and I knew that to achieve it, I had to keep my faith in what I believed in. True exhaustion comes from losing faith in yourself. When you lose connection with your values, everything starts to feel blurry. You feel like you're running an endless race without knowing the destination. You begin to work just to meet others' expectations, not for your own true goal. But once you realize this, you can change. You can go back, redefine your values, and live according to what you believe in. You will feel strength returning to you, and from there, you will begin to act with a clear goal, not hindered by external factors, An important part of building SpaceX was always staying connected to the long-term goal. I couldn't just chase after short-term goals or instant successes, because if I did that, I would never have been able to do something great. And this doesn't just apply in work, but also in your personal life. If you don't live according to what you believe in, you won't feel like you're heading in the right direction. And that's why you feel exhausted. When you do things you don't believe in, when you do things just because others told you to, you can't move forward. You will always feel tired because you're living for others, not for yourself. When you return to your core values, you will feel an immense strength within yourself. You will know exactly what needs to be done, and you will no longer fear facing challenges. You will understand that failures are just lessons, not the end. The most successful people are those who understand their values and never abandon them, no matter the difficulty. They know that perseverance, focus on long-term goals, and living according to their core values are the key elements to success. True exhaustion comes from no longer being connected to those values. When you can no longer stay connected to yourself, your goals and ideals, you will feel tired without a clear reason. But when you return, when you reconnect with yourself and live according to the values you believe in, you will see that nothing is impossible. You will have the strength to overcome any challenge because you will know exactly where you're going, and you won't let anything beyond your control stand in the way of your progress. Continuous resistance doesn't make you stronger, it quietly wears you down. One of the biggest mistakes many people make is thinking that strength comes from persistently fighting against everything. I used to think like that, but I realized an important thing on my journey. Not every battle is worth fighting, and you don't always have to resist everything. Every time you oppose, every time you resist something, whether big or small, you are consuming energy that you cannot instantly recover. You might think you're being strong, that you're being resilient, but in reality, every time you react, you are weakening yourself bit by bit. One of the things I learned when building SpaceX is that if I kept fighting against every difficulty and challenge without understanding its true nature, I would never be able to create real change. These challenges aren't enemies to be defeated. They are opportunities to learn and grow. And sometimes, instead of fighting, what you need to do is stop, listen, learn, and adjust your course. Continuous resistance is a natural response. When you face something unwanted, you want to react immediately, push it away, but in many cases, that resistance only makes the problem worse. I realized that when I faced a major challenge, sometimes I needed to pause and assess the situation instead of reacting right away. When building SpaceX, we faced countless failures in rocket tests. Each failure not only exhausted me, but also made my team feel tired and doubtful about our long-term goals. But instead of continuing to resist in vain, I changed my perspective. Every time the rocket didn't launch as planned, I didn't see it as a failure. I saw it as a lesson, an opportunity to learn. I didn't resist failure, I learned from it. And from there, I figured out how to do better to achieve the goals I set. You too. You can't constantly fight against things that cannot be changed. Once you realize that resistance is not the way to become strong, you will see that you can start redirecting your energy to things that can be changed, to opportunities to learn and improve yourself. Resistance only makes you tired. It pulls you away from what matters and causes you to lose the ability to see real opportunities. Every time you resist something that isn't going your way, you're holding your energy in a tense state. And that doesn't just tire you out, it weakens your ability to make sound decisions. When I face challenges, instead of resisting, I've learned to accept and face them calmly. When a test fails, I don't react with anger or disappointment. I stop, find the cause, and look at how we can improve. It is the calmness in times of crisis that has helped me get through difficult stages. You may look at a challenge and feel like it's a giant rock blocking your path, but if you resist it, you'll never get past it. You need to learn to go around the rock, or even turn it into a stepping stone to move forward. That's how I approach every problem. Instead of waiting for a perfect path, I focus on creating opportunities from difficulties. Learning to view challenges as part of the process is one of the key factors that has helped me avoid exhaustion throughout the long journey. And you need to learn how to do that as well. What I've noticed is that when you stop resisting and change your perspective, you start to see that you can control everything around you instead of letting it control you. You'll have enough energy to focus on what's important instead of wasting it on things that can't be changed. When I stopped resisting every difficulty, I began finding ways to overcome them. And that helped me get closer to my goal. Resistance is not strength. True strength is the ability to accept what cannot be changed and focus on what you can do better. When you learn to stop resisting and instead see everything as an opportunity to grow, you will become stronger than ever before. No one forces you to react. It's your choice. And because it's a choice, you can change it. Throughout the journey of building SpaceX, I realized one very important thing. Every reaction, every decision you make comes from your own choice. No one has the right to make you do this or that unless you allow them to. So why let external factors control you? Every time you react to an event or words, you are giving control of your life to someone else. You think you are acting naturally, but in reality, you are just living the way others want you to. When you let events, words, or irrelevant matters decide your actions, you have lost control. You might say you have no choice, but the truth is you can always change how you perceive and react to everything. What I learned is that instead of letting external factors control me, I can decide how I will react. A challenge may make you feel attacked, but no one can make you react negatively. You can choose silence, observation, or even ignore it and focus on your goals. In fact, when you choose not to react, you're actually showing true strength. You are in control, managing your emotions. This world will always challenge you, presenting unpredictable situations. But that doesn't mean you have to react immediately, nor does it mean you have to let it pull you into a meaningless battle. When I started building SpaceX, not everyone believed in me. I was even laughed at and considered crazy, but I didn't react emotionally, didn't try to justify or explain to those who didn't understand. I knew that reacting would only distract me from the great goal I was pursuing. To achieve great things, you must learn not to react to things that aren't worth it. And here's the important thing. Not everything in life deserves your reaction. You can choose not to react, and that is an invisible strength. Sometimes, the greatest strength is silence and perseverance, moving forward without being distracted. No one has the right to force you to react. A word, an event, or a situation cannot make you act unless you choose to. This world will always have external factors, critics, tough situations, failures, but you have the power to decide how to react to them. You can choose not to let them take away your peace of mind. Once you understand that reaction is a choice, you will realize that you can control how you respond. You will no longer let emotions or external factors control you. You will choose to face challenges calmly, clearly, and strategically. And when you do that, you will feel the change. You will find yourself stronger, calmer, and able to stay on course without losing your way. Not reacting is not weakness. It's emotional control. The ability to view every situation clearly and rationally. I've learned that not every failure is worth reacting to immediately. You must know when to stay silent, when to fight, and when to let go of things that aren't worth it. When you can choose not to react, you are giving yourself space to think and act more intelligently. That's when you truly start taking control of your life. Instead of letting life lead you, you will lead it the way you want. It all starts with realizing that reaction is a choice, and you can absolutely change how you respond to the world around you. When you start mastering your reactions, you'll see that life is no longer a series of random events. You will have control, and at that point, you will stay on track without being distracted. When you start feeling exhausted from meaningless conversations, when you no longer find satisfaction in responding immediately, when you realize that silence brings more power than arguing, that's not depression, it's maturity. I've been in such situations, especially when I had to make important decisions for SpaceX, facing skeptics and challenging circumstances. You know, life doesn't always require you to fight to win every conversation, every argument. When I started realizing that not everything has to be a battle, I saw the power of listening and silence. And this doesn't mean giving up. On the contrary, it's a sign of maturity. You won't feel the need to justify yourself or explain to those who are not ready to understand you, simply because you understand that not everyone needs your persuasion, and you don't need to spend time on arguments that bring no value. When you start feeling tired of meaningless dialogues, it's a sign that you're progressing, you're realizing that your energy is more valuable than to be used dealing with things that aren't really important. When I faced criticism about SpaceX, I didn't react immediately. I didn't need to explain to those who didn't understand my vision. I knew they weren't the ones deciding where I was going. They were outsiders, and what mattered was that I focused on my work. This doesn't mean I don't care about others' opinions, but I don't let worthless words weaken my focus. Silence is not giving up. It's a wise choice to focus on what matters more. When you no longer react immediately, when you no longer get caught up in meaningless arguments, you will begin to realize the power of focus. Silence in those moments is strength. It's a sign of someone who knows who they are and clearly understands the goal they are pursuing. Maturity doesn't come from winning every argument, but from the ability to know when to stay silent and when to act. I've learned that when you reach a certain level of maturity, you no longer feel the need to prove yourself in every dialogue. You no longer feel pulled into unnecessary arguments. You'll start realizing that sometimes silence is the greatest expression of power. Silence doesn't mean you're avoiding the issue. It means you're handling everything in your own way. You're taking time to think, to understand yourself and what truly matters. And when you start living this way, you'll feel freedom. You will no longer feel bound by others' expectations or the need to prove yourself. On the contrary, you'll feel liberated because you've freely chosen the battles you want to fight and you reject unnecessary arguments. You will no longer be dragged into situations you don't want to participate in. Instead, you will be able to choose dialogues that bring value, help you grow, and progress. What I've learned is that life isn't always about fighting and arguing. Successful people are not the ones who can win every argument, but those who know when to stay silent and when to act correctly. Maturity comes from the ability to recognize that not everything is worth reacting to. Not every conversation, every criticism is worth your participation. When you achieve maturity, you'll realize that petty things are not worth your time. Important things don't come from petty arguments, but from big decisions, breakthrough actions, and the ability to maintain a clear vision. You don't need to prove to others that you're right. You just need to prove to yourself that you're on the right path. That's what truly matters. The more mature you become, the more you'll realize that other people's words cannot define your worth. You can choose silence and maintain your peace of mind. And when you do this, you'll feel real power in your hands. Your heart won't be distracted by trivial words, and your mind won't be scattered by unnecessary arguments. You'll continue your journey, undeterred by external factors. When you realize that silence can bring more power than arguing, that's when you truly begin to mature. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you've chosen to speak only those things that matter, those that can change the world. Choosing not to react does not mean you've given up. It means you've chosen peace over noise, intellect over instinct, inner freedom over immediate victory. Throughout the journey of building SpaceX, I realized something that few people can see clearly at the outset. Silence, non-reaction, is a manifestation of strength, not weakness. When I started, I had to face countless doubts, criticisms, and mockery. People told me that building a rocket that could land back was crazy, but I didn't react. I didn't need to justify my vision to those who didn't understand. Instead, I focused on the work, the vision, and the long-term goals I had set. You can be pulled into endless arguments, especially when you have a big idea and want to change the world. But those arguments, that noise, can make you lose focus on what truly matters. You cannot let the outside world control your emotions. When I chose not to react to criticism, it wasn't about giving up the fight. It was about choosing to fight in my own way, with patience, intellect, and vision. When you don't react immediately, you choose peace over chaos. You don't let the small things distract you. That's when you truly control yourself. Silence is a powerful tool. It's not a lack of interest, but a purposeful choice. You are focusing on what matters most instead of getting caught up in meaningless battles. I have learned that patience and calmness are essential to achieving great goals. You don't need to prove yourself right in every argument. What matters is maintaining focus on your long-term goals. Every time you react, every time you put energy into an unnecessary battle, you waste time and effort on things that don't bring you closer to your goals. Peace, intellect, and inner freedom come when you realize that you don't always need to react. You can choose not to participate in the games others are playing. You can choose to focus on your work, on what really matters. When you do that, you'll realize that you can progress without wasting energy on unworthy battles. Inner freedom is the ability to choose your reactions, the ability to stand firm in difficult situations without letting them affect your mood or goals. This doesn't mean you'll never feel anger or frustration, but it means you won't let those emotions control your actions. You won't let immediate reactions rob you of your peace and vision. Since I started SpaceX, I've learned that every failure, every challenge brings a lesson. And these lessons don't come from reacting immediately, but from calmly thinking and learning from them. Peace comes from the ability to accept that you cannot control everything, but you can control how you react to them. If you keep reacting instinctively, you won't be able to control your life. Instead, you'll just be a part of the flow, swept up by events without shaping your own future. Choosing not to react doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you've reached a level of maturity where you understand that not everything is worth arguing about. You'll realize that life is not a series of battles you must win. Instead, life is a long journey where you must hold on to your vision, learn from failures, and persist in pursuing your goals. And when you start living like this, you'll see that not every word, every event is worth your reaction. The people around you may challenge you, but you have the right to choose how to face them. That is true freedom. Peace comes when you no longer feel the need to prove you're right in every argument. Intellect comes when you understand that not every battle is worth joining. And inner freedom comes when you can live your way without being swayed by what doesn't matter. When I understood these things, I no longer got pulled into meaningless arguments. I focused on my goals, on building SpaceX and bringing great things to humanity. And when you do this, you'll see that not only are you stronger, but you'll also achieve great goals you once thought impossible. Choosing not to react is not giving up. It's the choice of someone who has matured, someone who understands that peace, intellect, and inner freedom are essential for long-term success. Every time you choose not to react, you are building a protective layer for your soul. Reaction is not always a sign of strength. In fact, if you let every situation, every word make you lose control, you will gradually tire and lose the ability to truly grow. I've learned that when facing difficulties, failures, or criticism, the important thing is not to react immediately, but to maintain your composure and view the issue clearly. Throughout the journey of building SpaceX, I faced countless challenges, and I didn't always react. When we failed, when the rocket didn't launch as planned, I didn't rush to blame or try to explain to everyone. Instead, I viewed it as an opportunity to learn and improve. In those moments, I didn't let temporary emotions control my actions. I realized that if I kept reacting to every situation, I would no longer have the energy to focus on what truly mattered. And each time I didn't react, I was truly creating a protective layer for my mind and soul. When you don't react to things that don't matter, you are strengthening your self-control. You don't let external factors take away your calmness, and you don't let temporary challenges lead you astray. Over time, you'll see that silence is not weakness, but patience and true strength. When you don't react, it doesn't mean you accept everything bad. On the contrary, you are protecting yourself from external factors that could disrupt your emotions and reasoning. I understand that when I focus on what's most important, I can make clearer decisions. This helps me avoid getting caught up in meaningless battles, small challenges that aren't worth my time and energy. In fact, if you keep reacting, you won't be able to make real change. I learned this from the early days of building SpaceX. The skeptics, the failures, they were all part of the journey, but if I only reacted to every failure, I wouldn't be able to see the bigger picture. You must see opportunities in failure instead of just seeing failure as something insurmountable. When I learned not to react immediately, I began to view things from a different perspective. I no longer felt the need to explain to those who didn't understand. I didn't need to argue or justify. And over time, I realized that every time I didn't react, I was mastering myself. I was protecting my mind from turmoil. This doesn't mean I became indifferent. I still felt the failures, the hardships, but I didn't let them take away my long-term goals. I learned to place everything in the right perspective and maintain my calmness. Choosing not to react doesn't mean you give up. You can still act and move forward. You don't need to react to everything around you. You just need to act according to what you believe in. True peace comes when you know you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to engage in every argument or battle. You just need to focus on your path. And when you do that, you'll realize that you are building a protective layer for your mind and soul. When I didn't react to external events, I not only protected myself from mental exhaustion, but I also created space to think more clearly. When you stop and don't react immediately, you're giving yourself time to assess, to find solutions, instead of reacting instinctively. And that's when true wisdom appears. Silence is not retreating, it's self-mastery. You are controlling your emotions and focus instead of letting them be controlled by external factors. From there, you'll become stronger because you're not swept up in unimportant factors. You can continue on your path without distraction. Every time you choose not to react, you are choosing strength. That choice doesn't come from avoidance or fear, it comes from the ability to understand that not everything needs a reaction. You'll see that when you don't react to things that don't matter, you're protecting yourself, preserving your energy and focus on what truly matters. Non-reaction is the strongest protective layer you can create for yourself. When you master this, you'll realize that you're not just protecting yourself, but you're building inner strength, wisdom, and the ability to view everything more clearly. It's not that life becomes easier, it's that you are no longer driven by reactions. You have intention, you stand firm, and you have peace. Throughout the journey of creating SpaceX, I realized something very important. Difficulty is not the main problem. The biggest issue is how you face it. If you always react emotionally, instinctively, you will never have enough strength to overcome challenges. In fact, challenges are never easy, but when you don't let external factors distract you, you will feel life is lighter, though still full of challenges. That's when you can focus on what truly matters, your goals. When I started SpaceX, everyone thought I was crazy. They couldn't understand my vision. They couldn't see that what I was doing was a long-term plan, not just a short-term scheme. They only saw difficulties, failures, and uncertainty, but I didn't react to their doubts. I didn't argue, justify, or explain. I just kept working. And I realized that when I stopped to think, when I didn't immediately react to every difficulty, I began to master my life. Not because life became easier, but because I was no longer led by fleeting emotions. I had intention. I knew what I was doing and why I was doing it. And more importantly, I no longer allowed external factors to influence my decisions. Life will always challenge you. There will be difficulties, failures, and moments that make you want to quit. But if you keep reacting to every challenge, you won't get anywhere. You will always stand still, caught in a whirlwind of reactions, emotions, and failure. You won't be able to maintain peace of mind, you won't see the bigger picture, and you certainly won't be able to move forward. Peace doesn't come from avoiding challenges. It comes from the ability to stay calm and not let immediate reactions control you. You can face challenges, but you won't let them lead you into panic or insecurity. When you have intention, you'll know when to act, when to stop, and when to change course. You won't get caught up in unnecessary battles. You will only focus on big goals and know that every step you take brings you closer to them. I understand that success doesn't come from winning every challenge immediately. Success comes from patience and maintaining belief in long-term goals. Every time you don't react, you are truly mastering your life. You are not letting emotions, fear, or external factors take away your peace. You can stand firm and move forward, even when everything around you is chaotic. When you have peace of mind, you'll realize that you can act more intelligently and effectively. You are no longer caught up in natural reactions, but you are mastering yourself. You know what you want, and you have enough focus to achieve it. Sure, not everything is perfect. I've faced countless failures, long days struggling with technical and financial issues, but I didn't let those things distract me. I didn't react to them the way others expected. I focused on solutions, on what I could do to change the situation, and I understood that it wasn't that life became easier, but that I stopped letting emotions and external factors control me. That's true freedom. When you can keep peace of mind, not letting unimportant things lead you astray, you'll realize that you can go anywhere. You'll feel stronger, more resilient, and you'll achieve what you truly want. And that's when you understand that life isn't about winning every challenge immediately, but about the ability to stand firm and maintain peace of mind when facing them. When you have intention, you won't get caught up in unnecessary debates or challenges. You'll be able to view every situation calmly, making wise decisions. And that's the key to long-term success. Peace doesn't come from life being easier. Peace comes from the understanding that you can keep your spirit strong, not react to every challenge, and persist toward your clear goals. When you do this, you'll feel that life becomes easier,